It is Monday, November 18th, 2024. This is a meeting of the Redevelopment Commission for the City of Bloomington, Indiana. Let's begin with a roll call, please. Sue Scambaluri here.
Randy Cassidy here.
John West here.
And Lori McRobbie may be on her way. I know that Deborah Meyerson is not with us this evening, so could we have a roll call of sorts of staff, please?
Larry Allen Eagle.
Hannah Killian Hansen, Hand.
Jane Coopersmith, Economic and Sustainable Development.
Great, thank you.
It appears Lori's online.
Oh,
Perfect.
hello, Lori. Welcome. So,
Hi.
let us move on to the reading of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes from Monday, November 4th? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
We need to do a roll call.
Oh, we have to do a roll call. Forgot about that.
Virtual, we just need to do a roll call.
Okay. As we come around, please indicate your support for approval by saying aye. Randy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
And Sue Scambaluri, aye as well. Thank you. Those are approved unanimously. It's moving on to an examination of claims registers. Are there any questions from commissioners?
Okay, got 3 questions. Fund 101, 1000, where we got the Council of Neighborhood scrap. Is that from a neighborhood cleanup that goes back to the organization as a whole or to the Broadview neighborhood?
So it will go back to Broadview. So what happens is we turn it into JV Salvage. The funding actually goes back through CONA, which is the Council of Neighborhood Association, and then funnels back to Broadview for however they want to spend it.
And that's just part of the neighborhood cleanup that just
Yes.
put it, and then the city provided the instruments to put everything in,
That is
and then
correct.
took care of the details. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Let's see, the identify with the under 153 on the lit 78.7. Oh, sorry.
Find what page you're on.
Sorry, page 206.
Okay.
Page 206, and this is just clarification, where on Fund 153, 7878 Monroe County, identify and reduce invasive species. Which neighborhood was that for?
All neighborhoods. It's
All
for the
neighborhoods.
entire community.
Okay, okay. Let's see.
You had one more?
Yep, got 2 more. Actually, U3 advisors, this may fall under Hopewell. What our total overall left on that, since we're now getting into Hopewell East?
It appears that there's about 166,000 left on that.
On the contract?
Mhm.
And that's on page 3, John, sorry. And then, I do believe, oh, yeah, and then the last one is the, on page 6 of 6, under the 905 Housing Development, the 77,608. I know from previous conversations that I'd ask, they have an outstanding grant amount. Is there any way we can go ahead and close that out, or is this something that has to happen every month? Because
It's a reimbursement basis only, so
Okay.
they have to turn in claims to be paid. So unfortunately, that's the way that the grant agreement was structured.
structured on that, so this will be a continuation for the next.
A number of things will be, yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right, thank you.
John or Lori, any questions? Okay. If not, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve claims as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll move to a roll call vote. Randy?
Yeah, aye. Took me a minute, I was looking
Had
at
to
that
think about
moment.
that.
Yeah.
John?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
And Sue Scambaluri, aye. So thank you, everyone. Let's move to an examination of payroll registers. Are there any questions from commissioners? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
So moved.
To
Second.
approve?
Second.
I'll take it to approve. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Randy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
And Sue Scambaluri, aye. Okay, thank you, everyone. And let's move into reports of officers and committees. Is there anything from the director? Anna?
No report this evening, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Mary Ellen, legal?
The only report I'll give is just as a heads up that we will have our annual informative presentation at the next meeting, so the first meeting of December. That is where we invite all of the overlapping taxing units to attend. This is a separate statutory requirement that we invite them to a meeting of the RDC for that presentation. And Reedy Financial will see us again at that time as well. They're presenting your spending plan tonight, but then they will do kind of an annual report update. It's just a presentation that's given, so we may have some guests here with us if they choose to attend. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Better get more seats.
Yes.
Yeah, just on that particular one, is that something where we send out the invitation, or is that just public noticed?
It is, invitations are sent out specifically to the taxing units. And Reedy Financial is doing those. We looked at them, we approved them, so they should be sent out any day.
Thank you.
I don't see Jessica. Do we have a
She's
treasurer?
online.
Oh,
Yep, there she is.
is there a treasurer's report?
Your treasurer's report tonight. Happy to answer any questions if I can. And Cheryl may be in attendance to also take notes and follow up.
Okay, great.
She's yellowing. I can't tell the audience if she's there or not, but we will both follow up and if we need to.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. Business development updates.
No report tonight.
Thank you, Jane. Hopewell updates.
Hi, Mary Kropinski here for JS Held. Just to note that the Hopewell South public offering is due December 6th, and so we're looking towards that with anticipation, and then you'll hear a little while later in regards to Hopewell East. Just here to answer any questions otherwise.
Okay, thank you so much. And is there a CDFI update?
There is not. That was an error that did not get taken off from last time.
Is that, that's not a standard addition to the agenda, it was a,
just a
oops.
one-time report, yeah.
Got it.
Annual, we try to hear from them annually.
Okay, great. That takes us to new business, and in particular, Resolution 24-880, the approval of Trades District Conveyance Agreement with Dimension Mill, Inc. And who will be speaking to this?
I can start out. We also have John Fernandez in the room with us, and obviously Jane can add anything that I may miss. So this is something we've been talking about for some time now. Obviously, the RDC started out by recently re-updating the appraisals for the Trades District properties to get new fair market value for those that we are required to do by statute before offering them up. Those have been offered publicly. Indiana University was awarded a grant from the Lilly Endowment, the College and Community Collaboration Grant. As part of that grant process, IU had as part of their collaboration with the local community, the City of Bloomington, the Redevelopment Commission, and the Dimension Mill, Inc., that they would pay fair market value for the remaining vacant parcels in the Trades District and use their resources to develop them in the spirit of the technology park and the Trades District as a whole. So that's what you see before you as a conveyance agreement pursuant to that grant for the mill to purchase the remaining vacant lots, which we're calling tracts 1 and 2, of real estate for $4.6 million. And then this would also be subject to a partnership agreement that the mill and the city have together with the Redevelopment Commission for the marketing and development of the Trades District. So it will be subject to an extension of that agreement. Originally, that agreement had encompassed both the Forge and the Trades District generally about how it's going to be marketed, developed, and sold, those parcels. That is still in place. It goes right now until the end of 2025. So you will have an amendment to that agreement also brought to you, just so you know. So there are still requirements for the mill to follow as part of this partnership agreement that will extend through the life of the grant, which is 5 years approximately. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions, or if John or Jane want to add any other details.
John, anything to add, or Jane? Or not?
If there's questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Questions from commissioners? John?
Yeah, can you remind us what the appraised value was for each of those little tracts?
I think that this would be the average of the appraisal, so the $4.6 million is the average of the appraisals for the tracks. I could get you the, yeah, okay.
Additional questions?
It looked like Lori had a question online.
Yes,
Lori?
I do, and this it may be something that's standard that I'm just not familiar with. On page 4, item 5, the reversion to the redevelopment commission should the mill not execute, which seems unlikely. I noted that it would come back to the commission at the purchase price, meaning the price that is being paid today. So nothing different. It's not going to be reappraised, and we would.
That's correct. We've done these a couple of.
Back for more.
We've done this a couple of different ways in these conveyance agreements. This is a relatively short timeline, so 5 years for one of them, and the emphasis here for the grant and the requirements for the grant is that the property be developed. So we don't anticipate that this clause will be part of it, but the reason why you're not seeing updated appraisals in this particular things is because it's part of the agreement itself. So it's a kind of a it's a reversionary clause. It's not just that we're purchasing it at arm's length. I think the other concern we're trying to address there is to make sure that we're incentivizing development, that there's no land banking here to increase the fair market value, that a profit could be realized on not developing these parcels.
Right, that makes sense. And I assume, is it standard practice that any costs associated with conveyance back to the RDC would be borne by the commission?
Yeah, that is fairly standard, and those costs would be relatively minimal in terms of the closing costs. And since we would be the ones invoking that clause, it seems like that's a reasonable cost of doing that business.
Okay, thank you. Just want a clarification.
Good questions. Other questions?
Yeah, I've got a
John, please.
Question this is probably for John. Does the mill intend to do a survey? And the only reason I'm asking is that you're probably not going to get that done in the due diligence period, so so it'd be kind of a conflict if you were really going to go do it.
Yeah, I mean, Larry and I talked about that. If anything, we would do an updated survey. I doubt it's going to be necessary as part of the conditions. We'll probably end up doing one anyway, just to prep for any future leases or sales of the property.
which is fine.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't be asking for an extension on the due diligence.
No. Highly unlikely.
Okay.
And the survey's been completed relatively recently with very few changes to the real estate. So in terms of the update, this is not like starting from scratch on a brand new survey.
Right.
One of the things we do have to have completed, just in terms of the timeline to know this is not survey related, but particularly the phase 1 environmental, that will have to be completed before the closing of the sale. And that has to do with EPA regulations. So that's one of the things that'll have to be updated.
Yeah, we already have one done. It's now
Correct.
an updated situation, so we're not going to be in a survey situation where we're in a line waiting.
That's right. And the other thing is, anytime a purchaser is going to purchase land like this, it's a good idea. It's very wise to have an updated phase 1 for environmental liability reasons.
Yeah, I mean, the city has shared all of the phase 1, phase 2, additional phase 2, all related to the trades district that were done a few years ago. And so we're very comfortable. We know what the property is and very comfortable with it.
Yeah, so really, we don't anticipate any surprises. What it really is it affords the mill, as they're marketing and potentially selling these, to realize what's called a bona fide prospective purchaser protection under EPA regulations.
The buyer's gonna require it anyway, so.
Correct.
You might as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead with this.
Additional questions? Randy?
Based on 30 days feasibility, you got that covered. As this thing closes, as we close out, essentially from an RDC standpoint, at this point, after this is done, we no longer have land in the RDC's capacity, but we have obligations based upon the mill itself.
Yeah, so the RDC still will own some land in the trades district. So it owns the mill itself. That's one of the pieces. There's some common areas that the mill, or that the RDC, excuse me, will still own that, that we're subject to, as we talked about, kind of our agreement with utilities to take care of costs for those. So those will be retained in the redevelopment commission's name. But otherwise, in terms of the developable lots, yes, this will take those out of the name of the RDC. However, the partnership agreement does call for fairly standard and regular reporting and just coming back to you and letting you know what the updates are.
Well, I mean, the reporting and such, because the next question I would have, other than what we retain and then what our obligations are going to be as far as just the area, reoccurring expenses that we need to calculate on. Will that be some?
Other than CBU.
Other than CBU, exactly. Because I know we have our landscaping we have to do and also take care of. I just want to see as we go through our budget later on that we've included all those things so we don't end up having finger pointing that once we establish the development of the mill, of the trades district with Dimension Mill.
Yeah, those are things that are more appropriate for the partnership agreement to call out in the partnership agreement in terms of any ongoing obligations. So when you see that brought back to you, we will address those particular issues.
Okay, so the partnership agreement, after we consummate this particular agreement, then we'll come back with any of the particular details?
Yeah, for those types of things where we're talking about what's the frequency of reporting, how that's going to work with the trades district development, and then also who's going to cover what in terms of expenses.
It would be nice if the routine maintenance was not our responsibility.
Maintenance of what?
The common area. So just FYI.
Yeah. And my reason for asking this is simply a matter of, at some point, we may not be here and there'll be other people, and that they have budgetary basis that they're looking at that say, okay, we have to have this on a continual basis, so we're not, we know what we're going to in the next 5 to 10 years as opposed to,
I would just add, if I could, is that I think with the exception of the garage, which the redevelopment commission owns and it has the commercial space in it, and the mill, I'd have to go back and look at their recently renewed lease for the mill to see what it says about the plaza. But, I think the point you're getting at, John, I think there's going to be, other than maybe the stormwater, I don't think there's going to be any obligations because we're assuming in our operating budget, the mill for 2025, that, some of the expenses that are currently borne by the redevelopment commission for like snow removal, mowing, all that kind of stuff is going to be ours. The Forge has baked into its operating agreement or budget, similar kinds of expenses for landscaping and snow removal. The hotel will, when that closes, they'll assume those responsibilities as well. So really, the only thing that may be there is the anything related to the mill. We could certainly look at that in the context of the updated partnership agreement. And I might just add, if I could, to go back to where you started, Randy. Ann Bono's here as well from Indiana University. She's part of the university relations team, and they're the ones that are very involved in the CCC grant. And so if you have any questions, she's here as well. But the grant, what we had contemplated was actually closing in 2024 as part of the milestones with the endowment in terms of what we're doing. So unless there's some huge surprise, which like Larry mentioned, I don't think we anticipate any surprises with the environmental or the title that you'll be presenting. We should, the goal is close this year. Okay, close.
Well, that actually answers the question. I knew that you had to line these two up.
Yeah.
And you can't close with us until you've got the grant money in. I was going to ask that question.
Yeah, so the process is pretty straightforward, and you may want to dive in if you want, but the way it's set up is that once the RDC approves the contract, the mill board approves the contract, As we get a little closer to closing date, we'll prepare a draft closing statement so that we can get a really good handle on all the costs associated with the transaction. There's a Trades District Advisory Board, which is the governance body, community governance body for the Lilly grant. They'll receive all those documents. They will provide the final approval, if you will. And those funds will get transferred to the mill, and then the mill will transfer those funds to the city at closing.
I'm good. I don't have any further questions.
Grants a 5-year burn off, decreasing, or when I'm referring to the grant, we have a 5-year, what I refer to as.
Which grant are you referring to?
The CCC grant.
Yeah, the grant itself is 5 years. There are different components to the grant. Some of those projects, like this one, are, one shot done. There's the, as it relates to the mill, there's funding for tenant improvements to the forge. We anticipate spending all of that in 2025. There's additional money that we'll have to, work with the RDC and Historic Preservation and others for potential expansion of the mill. But then the city itself, I don't quote me on the amount, but there's a significant amount of funding from the endowment to the city for placemaking investments in the Trades District. And I think that's probably 4 million, 5 million, somewhere like that.
Well, my main question on that, John, is just a matter of what's the RDC's, as Lori asked about the revision clause, are we in a situation where it's decreasing every year, or is it just you maintain everything for 5 years and then then you're done? You understand what I'm trying to communicate?
They would own it past the grant period. Is that what you're referring to?
What portions of the grant where we're conveying something for a specific dollar amount that has conditions on a grant. Now, is it the advisory board that has the concern on the grant if it could be clawed back, or is the RDC need to be concerned? What I'm asking is, like in some grants, they'll burn off every year. They draw down on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
And others, it has to convey, just like our economic development grant for the forge, it had to go 15 years. Is this one
Oh, no.
a 5-year?
No, there's none of those similar kind. I mean, the grant period for the CCC is 5 years.
Okay.
And there's specific budgets allocated either to the mill or to the city of Bloomington for specific component projects that are funded by the grant. And it's anticipated that we will spend down collectively the entire amount of funds within that 5-year period.
Okay, so that's what the basis is.
So it's going to be lumpy depending on which projects go in.
It's not a straight burn off, and the dollars are transferred immediately. It's not a 5-year.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the money has already gone from the endowment to Indiana University.
Okay.
So the grants office manages. The IU Foundation, I think, is holding them.
Okay, so we already got the money available, and then, which brings me to my last question. Once everything's done, due diligence, at the end of 2024, what fund does the money go back into in the RDC?
That really would be at the discretion of the controller's office. Technically, that is actually what the 444 account is what we call it. The general account is for. It receives those monies in. So it doesn't necessarily flow back directly to the TIF itself, but it goes into the general fund part of the RDC's account. Because that money is not generated by the tax increment itself, so it goes typically into that 444 account.
But it was the TIF that
Purchased it to begin with. I don't see, I could see it with rental income or any kind of routine income, but a sale of an asset, I don't see why that doesn't go back to the TIF.
You can take that up with the General Assembly, of course, but
I'll call them as soon as we're done.
and just frankly, our controller may have the same opinion. So if she wants it to flow back into the TIF, it can. It's not like we're restricted from putting there. It's just typically when we've done these types of sale, it goes into the general account because that's where it has flowed to.
So it goes back in, it'd be in the fourth.
We can have that conversation at a later date.
Yeah. Okay.
Answers that question.
Additional questions on 2480? Okay. Is there any public comment on Resolution 2480? And I don't see any in person or online.
I'll move for approval for Resolution 24-80.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lori. By roll call vote, Randy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
And Sue Scambolery, aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Much
you all.
appreciated.
You got a lot to do.
Yes,
And now go market it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I am.
we
Don't worry.
definitely want to see the turn.
I feel like there should be a fanfare now or
There
something,
should.
so.
significant.
And there should likely be a fanfare before our next one, too. So Resolution 2481, authorization to issue Hopewell East offering packet. Who will be speaking to this?
Is this the tech electronics?
This
Yep.
is,
No.
No, not yet.
no, this is the Hopewell East
I
offering
can
packet.
speak to this
sorry.
initially, but if Mary or Jane want to.
Yeah, I
Do you want to?
apologize,
Please.
it was loud in the peanut gallery. Yeah, Mary, please jump in, or Larry, please jump in. We have Stephanie Lynn with us from U3 Advisors. So, as Mary mentioned, we have the Hopewell South offering out in the wild, and that will close on December 6th. The next phase of development for Hopewell is Hopewell East. You'll all remember that last fall, the city issued an RFP to gauge interest and receive feedback on Hopewell East and the city's strategy for developing it. The new administration reviewed those responses early in the year and spent a significant amount of time this year determining what adjustments might need to be made. We were reviewing financials and re-engaged with U3 really late summer, late summer, and then spent time revising the previous RFI, and now we're issuing the public offering. The public offering is obviously the formal offering of the lots, so the process we went through before was informal and informational, and so now here we are in November, formally beginning this process. Thinking through time frame, we are closing the offering. Well, yeah, I'll just say that the holiday timing added some delays to the offering, and I'm struggling to pull it up right now. Larry,
It's February 7th.
right. So just trying to be realistic about what the developers, what kind of time they need, given the intervening holidays.
And I'd
Anything
also say the
else?
scale of this development, I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of what we're looking for, in terms of scale and originality, and just going through we wanted to give them ample time to take this into account and to respond, so.
Yeah, and I think another thing I might flag is just that we anticipate these parcels being of interest for LIHTC development, but that it will be an unknown to those developers whether they will have approved proposals. So we just described that we are seeking development partners. So we're looking for a trusted and experienced partner that we know will be able to execute for our community and for Hopewell. So we don't anticipate anyone having answers when they respond. Anything else? Mary, any other high points, or Stephanie, that you would want to point out for the commissioners?
Happy to jump in, Stephanie from U3. So we're ready to distribute it directly ourselves among developers we've engaged with starting tomorrow. We'll be in frequent touch with them over the weeks between now and the deadline of February 7th. And I think Jane covered the main points, but happy to answer any other questions about the offering kind of contents themselves.
Yeah, before John West asks, value is $6.136 million for all three parcels. There are blocks 1, 2, and 3 that equate to 3.57 acres, and Based on the master plan, the anticipated number of units could be anywhere from 210 to 330 with first floor activation for services or businesses or retail.
Okay, so now I only have 6 questions.
Want me to start?
Yep.
The deadline for submittal is the February 7th at noon, but it's also the same day and time of our consideration. Don't I'm just asking, don't you usually want to lapse kind of between them?
So in this case, we open those publicly. So what that is a public meeting really just to receive those, to announce what we've received. It is not the awarding of the contract necessarily. So that's just when those are received, and we just receive them in a public meeting so that everybody's on notice of what has been publicly received.
And Larry, that opening, is it a full meeting of the RDC? Are the commissioners here, or is it just a publicly noticed?
It's a publicly noticed meeting, so we obviously invite the commissioners to be here for it. If you can't make it, then we still have the meeting could still, the opening still occurs, and it's public and it's open to everybody who wants to come.
Go on.
All right. On page 23 of the offering document, as well as, actually it's throughout the document, we reference redevelopment fees. That's pretty vague. How are they determined? What are you going to say to a developer that he wants something that's a little more specific?
So the redevelopment fee is really there to cover some of the costs that the redevelopment commission has actually incurred during the development of this, in addition to just maintaining the property, keeping up the property, and things like that. So this redevelopment fee is kind of a way of regaining some of the value. It's just a negotiating point. We kind of fully recognize that it's a potential negotiating point that's outside of the purchase price, and then that money would be something that we could just funnel back into the project for other purposes as well. So it's kind of a reimbursement for what the RDC has already taken on in terms of again, like I said, maintaining the property, having security for the property, having lighting for the property, those things that we've been doing that are relatively costly that we've had to do, that has potentially taken money also away from the project itself. So it's a way of trying to recoup some of that dollars that we could put back into the project.
So it's not money for
Maintenance going forward.
It could be used as money for maintenance going forward, but it's not an ongoing obligation. So it's a one-time fee. We're not requiring
Annual commitment.
Yeah, an annual commitment.
And there's no standard number that you're targeting here. That's just a open-ended question.
We'd want to do it on a per unit basis. I don't think that's a number that we've arrived at. I don't think it was in the offerings.
Discussed different numbers, and this is a structure that is used in other communities in Indiana. So I'm just observing that it's not going to be totally unusual, but to Larry's point, we anticipate it to be a negotiating point for both sides, I guess.
All right.
Page 25, the same document, there's a nice graphic, and then there's a paragraph under it. Maybe it's me, but I don't understand what we're really saying there.
So that caption goes with what follows the page break.
On 26, yeah.
Right, I saw that also.
And so I think it's just observing that the red dotted roads are not funded. So we're kind of spelling out, maybe not very clearly, what infrastructure commitments the city has made and is investing in or has invested in, and what infrastructure, what roads specifically, the city has not identified funding sources for.
So what it would do is, yeah, put them on notice. For instance, if you're bidding on lots 1 and 2 in Hopewell East, it tells you that likely will trigger under our planning ordinance improvements to Morton Street, which is immediately adjacent to it, which we have not already contemplated, we have not already funded. So those would be on the developer potentially to fund.
So the first sentence, the improvement of extant red, what does that mean?
So if the roads are extant, and if the roads exist already and they're red, then improvements will likely be required. So we need some plain speak there.
Before, and that was new. Okay. I've got one more and then I'll shut up for a while.
Good questions.
You said good and I thought.
No.
Page 26, in the parking section, about halfway down. Is that a typo?
Yes. Wibble is not a word as far as I'm aware, so.
I didn't think extant was either, so.
Cool. Extant is a word, but wibble we should change to while.
Okay. All right, I'll defer to Randy.
Randy, dive in.
Well, my main objective, or main concern in anything on this is the lack of predictability in regards to what a developer is going to be looking at. Because, you know, if we're just like dealing with roads, utilities, anything that falls under the public purview, to say, okay, well, you can do this, you can't do this, but we know what our extent roads are, they're built, and if we know they need to be upgraded, how do we get predictability to a developer when they're looking at this? And that's part of the concern I have, because, you know, when we're talking 330 units here and overall we're talking 900 units and we're looking at the total dollar amount, you know, it just seems when we're asking the private industry to come in and help solve some of our problems, that looking and saying, okay, here's the roads and we know what's going to have to be done. And here's what we anticipate the cost is, because, you know, we have a very good public works department that's really good about saying, here's what we anticipate the costs are. And that's my biggest concern with the RFP, is simply a matter of putting it out there with unknown things from either roads, utilities, responsibilities, because redevelopment fees, and just the unknowing, because if you don't know, you will guess, and ideally you should guess high, but it'd be nice to take some of the unpredictability out. And I don't know the proper way that would occur in order to be more consistent on our public infrastructure portion.
I do take the point specifically that the redevelopment fees are ambiguous. And we're asking them to make a proposal, I guess, within this document. That's valid. I mean, anything that you say is valid, but in terms of the roads, I think that developers who are in the business of providing responses to documents like this will have both ballpark numbers that they use when they're looking at infrastructure all in, and then given the time frame, we do anticipate that people will maybe get some estimates, cost estimates for building these roads. So I think that it would be concerning if we put specific numbers in the document and construction costs escalated, or there were some other change that we couldn't control, then the RDC would be,
Yeah,
you know.
not even necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Steph.
I'm about to plan here. When we look at the responses, and we've asked for a very detailed pro forma as part of the response, just as we did with the RFI. We're able, and particularly kind of going back and clarifying responses and so on, we're able to break out just what their costs are, what they're attributing to the building itself versus infrastructure versus whatnot. So there's a way we can kind of tease it out and be able to compare what are the differences across the responses, as well as, if we remove the infrastructure question, how do we evaluate the proposals, and then if we bring back the infrastructure question, now how do they look, right? So we'll have a lot of information available.
Yeah, and to your point.
Randy, I wanted to add that as our attachments, we're also including the infrastructure drawings of what's already been constructed and in place. So that takes a lot of question mark and gives them some information right in their hands, along with the public offering.
'cause we've master planned this extremely detailed. And as we look at that whole area, you know, getting to what we've asked for, and then, I mean, they're gonna have, whoever does a proposal, they're gonna have to do a significant dive into our UDO and to identify exactly what it is. So anything we can do that helps give more clarity in regards to the RFP. I know everybody's worked on it, they've worked on it hard, but I just want to make aware that public infrastructure, long-term maintenance costs need to have some predictable public portion of it rather than finding out afterwards, or the developers say, well, we think we can do this, we can't do this, then we come back and based on our UDO and what we have, that the master planned detail we have from the buildings we want, the walkable, you know, cost effectiveness, we don't degrade it by throwing also, degrade the quality or the cost we're looking at by saying, well, we're gonna have to do all the public infrastructure on a private situation because, you know, we don't know, we've run into enough unpredictability in Hopewell at the present moment. I just want to try to smooth that out
I
as we
think
go.
to simplify that, just be careful what you ask for.
Exactly.
You want to be LEED certified, you want affordable housing, and you want all this other stuff. Well, we just have to be conscious of that when we're looking at the offerings.
So, but we do need to get it on the street.
Did you have additional questions, Randy?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from commissioners? Okay. Any comments from the public?
Dave Askins with the Beach Grove Bulletin. I thought that when page 26 with the Whittle was noted, that the following sentence would also get some attention. And I think there's just some words in there that should be deleted. So I think the sentence is supposed to read, all proposals should identify whether their plans include use of this garage. But there's other words in there that I think was like from the previous draft.
Thank you for catching that. We'll be amending that.
Okay.
That's all I had. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Additional comments from the public?
Which item are we on?
We are on resolution 2481. Seeing no further,
No comment at the current time.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm not seeing any online, I don't think? No. Okay. Anything additional from commissioners or no? If not, is there a motion? And do you want this as amended?
Please.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to put the Hopewell RFP.
Public offering.
Public offering.
About resolution 2481.
There we go. Okay. I'll make a motion to put forward 2481.
To approve
To approve 81. Let me start.
Randy,
this.
no, you're cut off. Go ahead, I'm kidding.
No, go ahead. 20.
As amended?
Yeah. Approve resolution 2481 as amended.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lori. So we'll do a roll call vote on this. Randy,
Aye.
could you begin? John?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
And C. Scambaluri, aye. That passes. Thank you, everyone.
Put it out,
And
see what
let's-
we get.
And we look forward to updates as those come in. Resolution 2482 is next up. This is the approval of an amendment to our consulting agreement with J.S. Held for Hopewell. Who will be speaking to this?
Do you want me to speak to it?
Yeah.
In terms of, so we had extended this is agreement that JS Held, as obviously they're on this call and serving us very well here as a consultant to the whole entire Hopewell project. Currently, that agreement is set to expire on December 31st, 2024. There are still outstanding funds left in the purchase order that we have not yet expended, and we think that it's worthwhile to extend that agreement further until July 1st, 2025. However, not to approve any new funding at this point, to rather spend down the funding that we've already allocated to this particular project. So the overall amount for this contract, just so you're aware since its inception, is $627,342, but this doesn't add any additional money to that. It just extends the deadline for the expiration till July through second quarter of next year, essentially. So
You said 627,342?
I did, yes.
Commissioners may have questions about our longer-term strategy for project management, also, which I think I can speak to publicly. We've been really lucky to have the support of JS Held on Hopewell, and helping us envision and begin the process of transforming this site. But it has been a desire of the new administration to bring project management, capital project management in-house at the city. So we currently have a job posted on the city website to hire a capital projects manager that will be on the internal team supporting Hopewell and any other capital projects as they come online. And the extension of this contract will ensure that when we do bring our new team member on, we will retain access to JS Held, and we've talked with Deb about this, and just be able to have their support transitioning this very complex project.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners?
Just answered one.
If not, I have a question. What remains unspent? You said we haven't spent down all of our funds. What remains if the total package is 627,342?
I think it's in the neighborhood of 60,000.
Okay. And are we confident that will carry us through July then?
I believe at the rate that we are expending funds, it will be, yes. I don't think we necessarily need to get all the way to July, but we want to leave that possibility open.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Last question. That'll get us through the offering time and the responses and be able to move forward. So as one project comes in, JS Held will still be assisting us in the evaluations.
Well, that's what U3 is for, too.
I know. I'm
For
just making
Hopewell
sure.
South and Hopewell East, there's still Hopewell West, which we plan to do early next year, so there will be a process for that as well. So likely would get us through the preparation of Hopewell West.
Well, the reason I'm asking, some of these RFIs get delayed and extend on past. And I just want to make sure we keep the same people in as we're reviewing these, so we have continuity. Okay. Thank you.
Additional questions on 2482? Okay. Seeing none, is there public comment on Resolution 2482, either online or here in person? Yeah, and I'm not seeing any online here in person. If you would, please state your name for the record.
My name is Joe Davis. I represent the taxpayer objection petitioners of Bloomington and Monroe County. And I think that it would be best to keep that money in reserve and let the contract go ahead and sort of reach its endpoint, such that we have time to evaluate how the money that is potentially left is going to be responsibly, or direct how that money is going to be responsibly spent. And we don't feel at this time that we know enough about what is yet in store, and as far as moving through the sale or the RFP and the sale of the property. So we would rather that that money, a stay be placed on that money until we can look more closely at what's going on. And that does not mean that JS Held could still be contracted to provide consulting services from a different budget. But in the meantime, we feel that that money that is unspent should stay, and it should be placed in an escrow until we can further look into exactly how that is being proposed to be spent. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. I'm not seeing any comments online. Okay, so it comes back to us. Are there any additional questions from commissioners? All right, if not, may I have a motion regarding 2482?
I'll move approval of resolution 24-82.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded by roll call vote. Randy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
And Sue Scambaluri, aye as well. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's move to Resolution 2483. This is the adoption of the Commission's annual spending plan for 2025. Who would like to start us off?
I think Matt Fresh is here to...
Yep, I can do so. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you all again. Just here before you tonight to talk you through. I know we've already discussed this topic at your workshop a few weeks ago, but just the state legislature passed a new reporting requirement for RDCs, requiring us to submit an annual spending plan for the ensuing year by December 1st of each year. So we have put together a spending plan. The details of the spending plan from DLGF's perspective have been quite light as far as exactly what they want to see. Really just need to develop a spending plan and make sure you're following it. So we worked with various legal counsels across the state, seen what other communities are doing, and developed our take on what this spending plan should look like. I believe you guys should have all of those, or should have a copy of each one of those in front of you. So once again, we put broad categories together, including debt payments, educational and training programs, capital expenditures, and some other various categories together here. And then we've taken a look at the draft spending plan that Jessica and her office put together, and kind of looked at also historical spending over the past couple of years of what you guys have spent in these various categories. We've added those all up into those broad categories, and then also added a buffer of 15%. As you guys know, things pop up during the year that are unforeseen. So the last thing we want to do is bind you to a dollar amount. Something pops up next year that we need to spend funds on, and then now we have to go through the process of amending that spending plan and then going through the work of submitting that again. So I will say, with the disclaimer here, this spending plan, if you guys approve it tonight, it'll get submitted to DLGF and submitted to the council. And then once again, next year we come around, if we do get to the point where it looks like we're going to exceed one of these numbers in these broad categories, we do have the ability to come back, amend that spending plan, and then resubmit it to the state and to the Common Council. So other than that, if there's any specific questions you guys have, myself and Jessica can try to answer those. But like I said, really just broad categories that kind of give us some flexibility on what comes up next year and how we use our TIF funds.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else commenting as well?
Jessica,
Anna?
did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
I don't have anything I wanted to add. Thank you, Matt, and we'll take any questions from the commission.
Commissioners, questions?
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment for the benefit of the public. Matt kind of referenced a workshop, so just so everyone knows, we spent several hours working on this. We didn't just see this through this packet. So we've had a chance to work with it, to massage it, and this is the final representation of what came out of that workshop.
And that was a publicly noticed meeting.
It was, yeah.
So.
We had a member of the public there.
Mm-hmm.
And to add to that, I think, once again, I think the whole goal of this spending plan is to give us authority to use within various projects, but not inhibit ourselves based on a project that we think is going to come to fruition that may or may not, or maybe that dollar amount of that specific project changes. I would allude to the fact that, too, we went over a much more detailed financial plan that we can reference, that all of these items added up into this broader category spending plan. So there is a detailed plan that I think that has been discussed to keep updated at a regular basis. That'll kind of define where these numbers come from in more detail.
Additional questions, Randy?
That detail is available to the public.
Is that a statement or a
It's
question?
a question. I just want to verify. This overall budget that we're looking at is a large budget that is specifically broad for the Department of Local Government Finance. Any of
I'll
the...
jump in there.
Mm-hmm.
Our public documents are really just what is in your packet. So as of today, the only public, but in general, what the city has worked on is public, upon request. We don't have any problems sharing that with the public, but we just haven't presented it to the public in the form of like a public packet. So it isn't really out there anywhere for the public to see, but it's definitely part of the RDC's like work papers and sort of background documentation for how this plan was developed, and it's definitely available to you or any member of the public upon request.
Perfect. Thank you.
Additional questions from commissioners? Okay. Just for the benefit of the public, in the context of the resolution 2483, we've referenced the Meridian allocation area, but we don't include it in the TIF spending plan. Could you explain what is distinctive about that particular TIF and why it's not included here?
That TIF was created just last year. Sorry, I was confused about my calendar dates for a second. It seems like 10 years ago, but it was just last year. We created that TIF last year. My understanding is that has not actually realized any income, so we don't anticipate having the income to spend there at this point, because that won't be paid into until it's basically collecting. Potentially here it'll be paid 2025, so the first time you'll see that included in the spending plan is for 2026. So there's just no revenue there to spend in 2025 from that. But in terms of what that TIF is, that was particularly a personal property TIF that was for the expansion of fiber throughout the city by the Meridian Company, also Hoosier Fiber Network. That is very distinct in terms of it doesn't deal with real property, it just deals with the equipment for Meridian / Hoosier Fiber Networks. And under statute, we have to designate a single taxpayer. That's what we did with that. That's a designated single taxpayer. It also entered into a repayment plan where Meridian receives a large part of that money back to allow reinvestment into the community and the continual upgrade of the fiber throughout the entire city.
Thank you for that. Additional questions on 2483? And is there any public comment on resolution 2483? Yes. If you
Yes.
could state your name for the record, please.
Joe Davis, representing the taxpayer objection petitioners, or TOP. We definitely are against approving this budget. I mean, just general information about how much money. This is very sizable. I mean, just under the consolidated allocation area, it's almost 31.5 million. So we definitely are requesting the details that this is our public request. Please provide the details that are making up where this money is going to go. So at this point, we absolutely cannot support the passage of this spending plan as is without further information. It's, yeah, there's just this single page, and then there's the resolution itself. I mean, is this serious? Is this the way it's typically done? I find this unacceptable. We find this unacceptable. So I don't know if it's appropriate to ask questions at this time, but
This is an opportunity just to receive comment.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, we definitely hope that someone will reach out to us and let us know how we can more formally request this information that backs up this spending plan.
Thank you for your comments. Additional comments from, or questions from commissioners before we move forward? Okay. If not, is there a motion?
I'll move approval of resolution 24-84.
8-3.
8-3, I mean, sorry. 8-3.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded by roll call vote. Randy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
And Sue Scambluri? Aye. So resolution 2483 passes. Thank you, everyone. Moving to...
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next meeting.
Resolution, that takes us to resolution 2484, approval of agreement with Tech Electronics of Indiana for the Forge. And
I think Chris Yoli with Weber.
if you would restate your name and
Sure.
your affiliation for the record.
So Chris Cioli with Weber Brothers Construction. We are the construction manager on the Forge project. The request is to provide a change order to Building Associates. In summary, when the project was bid, the card access readers and cameras were not in the budget. They were to be provided by others. After additional review, they decided to incorporate that into the project. Additionally, in the project, specifically it said for the servers and the racks and the cabling was to be provided by others, or whether that was City IS or whoever, it wasn't in the project. In order to make the cameras and card readers function as they should and have the programming required for those, funding is needed in order to purchase that equipment. One thing that I wanted to highlight is there are other bid packages on this project. There were 5 bid packages. They all have contingency allowances. Some of them still have healthy amounts of contingency remaining, which will be issued back to the RDC through deduct change order upon completion of the project. Can't run this portion of the work through the other bid packages though, because they've already been hired through Building Associates to do the work. So you're kind of mixing contracts and trying to get people to do work outside of their scope if you try to funnel it through somebody who has contingency. So when it's all said and done, we'll pay Building Associates a little bit more to fund the required equipment, and then deduct change orders will come back through other packages, should offset relatively close to being a net zero.
Okay. Additional comments from staff? If not, questions from commissioners?
You answered the question. When we roll the whole project up as a whole, we're going to be at a sum zero where we're not going to be coming back asking for additional.
Correct. Okay. There should actually be a credit back to the RDC. I mean, so Friday's a grand opening. We know where the balances are. Providing any significant unforeseen circumstance, which I have no idea what that would be. We're trying to close things out at the moment.
And this gets our building secure.
Yeah, so it's on guard system. Sorry, yeah, on guard badge readers. Also within this is the purchase of the proximity badges as well, so they can issue those to tenants, city employees, RDC, whoever that. They can use those in lieu of keys.
And the compatibility will work
It's the same system in shower, same system at the mill, same system going in the Forge.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
John, any questions?
No, You handled it there at the end.
Mhm. Any other questions from commissioners? If not, I have one. This bothered me, and then it didn't bother me, and now it bothers me again. So the second whereas paragraph just confuses me a little. It talks about the project requiring solar design services to guide the installation of a solar array on the building.
That should be struck from the.
Okay. Thank you. So, are there any comments from the public on Resolution 2484? Either here or online? Okay, seeing none, let's come back to the commission. Anything else from commissioners? And if not, may I have a motion regarding Resolution 2484?
I'll move adoption of Resolution 2484.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded by roll call. Randy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
And Sue Scambolery, aye. That passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.